Prepare to have your health questions answered here on Safe, Effective Natural Solutions with Dr. Todd Binkley, owner of Binkley Healing Center in downtown Ventura. Now, here's Dr. Todd.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Todd Binkley, board-certified doctor of non-force chiropractic and practitioner of functional medicine. I've got an exciting show for you today. Among other things, we're going to talk about how to tell whether or not your supplements are likely to work. Here's a hint. Part of the subject is going to be why no one should take supplement gummies. There'll be a couple of case studies about a 70-year-old woman who went on a trip to Thailand and came back and had 3 months of diarrhea before she finally came in and we fixed it. And another man who had hemorrhoids, bloating, and soft stools. That's not a fun subject to talk about, but it is really exciting when someone you know, perhaps yourself, who has those symptoms and identifies a way to make it go away and stay away. Before we get into that, I've had a couple of patients recently mention to me how much they enjoyed listening to podcasts, rebroadcasts of the episodes of this show that you can listen to on demand anytime you like. So if you know someone and have people in your life, friends, family, neighbors, etc., who you think might enjoy this information, but for whatever reason can't tune in each Friday at 2 o'clock on the radio, then please tell them that all the past episodes of this show are available anytime on my website at binkleyhealingcenter.com. And they're also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. So, same thing, the same person who told me that they listened to these past episodes recently did so on Apple Podcasts because a friend of hers told her to do so, and it was the sort of thing. She had never listened to an Apple podcast before. So I have listeners of all ages to the show, and some of them wonder, what is a podcast? Most people know what a podcast is by now, but if you don't, it's kind of interesting. The history of the word podcast is a combination of iPod and broadcast. Originally, most podcasts were simply rebroadcasts of recordings from radio shows and other sources made into MP3 audio files that could be played on any MP3 player, the most popular of which was, of course, an iPod. So nowadays, anyone can make a podcast, and most of us listen to podcasts on our phones or computers. But in keeping with the historical origins of podcasts, many national radio shows, especially talk radio shows, offer the ability to listen to any episode that you missed on the radio by searching for and subscribing to their podcasts. So if you would like to hear past episodes of this show, there's a couple of benefits to it. If you have an iPhone or an iPad or a Mac computer, I find the easiest way to do this is with Apple Podcasts, which is a little purple app with what looks like a microphone with a couple of circles around it that's already installed on every iPhone and iPad. And if you're tired of finding nothing interesting on television or want something interesting to listen to while on a road trip or commuting, finding a podcast with recurring information or entertainment you're interested in can be, I think, it's a wonderful antidote to boredom and a great way to distract an overactive mind, which I find relaxing. I listen to podcasts all the time, mostly about health-related topics, but also comedy, history, news, arts and entertainment. And one of the best features I love is if you find that you can't quite hear something properly, most podcasts have transcription built in. So if you've ever wanted to be able to read what I'm saying on this show or anything you hear on another podcast, if you haven't heard this already, you can scroll down to the bottom, click on the transcription. You can even copy and paste a portion of it, and email it to a friend or even print it. You can find a full transcription of each episode of this show at the bottom of every episode in Apple Podcasts and many other podcast sources. And while you're at it, if you subscribe to this show on Apple Podcasts, I'd really appreciate it if you leave a review. You can scroll to the bottom, leave a 5-star review, and tell others what you like about it. My mission is to arm you with reliable information you can use to fill the gap between standard medicine that most people get when they go to the regular doctor and why you or someone you love might still not be getting the results you deserve. Why you might still have unexplained symptoms that are very real. And I'd love to get that information to you in whatever form you would like, whatever form works best for you. I also love listening to the radio, so I'm glad you do too. I've been doing this show for 2 years now, and the response and the feedback have been fantastic. I also love doing live presentations, so I'm happy to announce a new monthly series that I'm going to be hosting in my office in downtown Ventura at Binkley Healing Center, downtown Ventura, 961 East Main Street. If you enjoy what I talk about here on the radio show, I try to make the focus based on published research and evidence-based natural treatments, each week a different subject. And so I've scheduled a number of specific topics for the next few months. Every first Wednesday of the month, I'm going to be doing a 30-minute talk on an important health condition, and then I'm going to make time afterwards to meet you in person. I'd love to meet you in person and answer all of your questions, all of the questions your friends or family. Please bring friends and family, anyone you might think might like to hear more about this information. October is always Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So Wednesday, October 1st, just a couple of weeks away now, I'm going to be talking about Breast Cancer Awareness Month. That's a great thing. More people should be aware about breast cancer. Hopefully, they'll use that information to prevent it. I think the focus should be directly, instead of breast cancer awareness, make it Breast Cancer Prevention Month. So every October, I always like to host a talk on how you can reduce your risk. And this is an important distinction. There's no way to absolutely prevent getting breast cancer. There's too many variables, but there are ways to reduce your risk of getting breast cancer. And there's 20,000 people roughly every year in America who are dealing with the aftermath of surviving breast cancer. So standard medical treatment, oncology for breast cancer, has gotten better and better for many, many years, and it's great news. Even if no one wants to have to take chemotherapy and undergo radiation or surgery, but the standard medical treatment for breast cancer in particular is better than ever, and most people, many, many more people than ever before are surviving breast cancer. But a lot of those people, women who have survived, and men get breast cancer too, a very small percentage. But, people that have survived the gauntlet of chemotherapy, radiation, immunotherapy, other treatments for breast cancer, often end up still suffering with side effects. And it's really frustrating. I see these people all the time. They come to me. Sometimes they don't come. I don't treat breast cancer. No one comes to me and says, can you treat? No, I don't treat breast cancer. I do treat patients for neck pain, back pain, for autoimmune conditions, for hypothyroid, all the things I talk about on this show all the time, who happen to also have survived breast cancer, and they still have side effects of the medication that they took, like neuropathies, pain, burning, numbness, and tingling in their hands and feet, brain fog, fatigue. Fatigue is a huge one. A lot of times digestive issues, gas, bloating, cramping. It's different for everyone, and a lot of times people do just fine. But the frustrating part, from what I'm hearing from patients that have been through this, and in the research, it's not an unknown thing. A lot of people that survive, breast cancer survivors, don't really get that much support after they survive the cancer. They're told that these side effects from the therapy we gave you for cancer are normal. Well, thanks very much. I mean, how does that help? I mean, the implication is they're expected, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's the part they don't tell you. If your oncologist told you that the side effects you're still having from surviving cancer, that's great, and it's kind of, I don't know, maybe it's reasonable if they've saved your life to not want to be bothered too much about the minor complaints that you still have, because they're busy still saving the next person's life. But many, many millions of people who are cancer survivors still have lingering side effects, like fatigue, like gut issues, like neuropathies, pain in certain areas. And many, many of these things can be helped with functional medicine, with diagnostic testing to identify places where you still have inflammation or nutrient deficiencies, weaknesses in your immune system's ability to maximize maintaining your health, fighting off chronic infections. There's a whole host of things that just most people just never even check. And when we identify those things and replete the nutrients that you need and give you the support your body needs to heal itself, then folks who are excited that they survived cancer can also be even more excited by the fact that the symptoms that they might still have in the aftermath of cancer treatment are also now finally gone. I'm Dr. Todd Binkley. You're listening to Safe, Effective, Natural Solutions to Almost Any Health Challenge. Today, I'm going to talk more about how to tell the difference between good and bad supplements. Well, what does that mean? Well, basically supplements that are helpful, that are going to do what you expect them to do, or maybe not so much. A lot of supplements are actually kind of useless, especially one-a-day multivitamins. I've talked about this before. I'm not going to go on about that today. I'm going to use as an example today calcium supplements. Calcium, the huge gap between useful and nearly useless calcium supplements is huge. We're going to talk about that today. But I just want to give a kind of a general context. It's great. I have a lot of patients who come to me who are smart, like listeners to this show, who do your own research. You're listening to me now because you want to take responsibility for your own health. You want to find a way to do something that doesn't cost a mint, and even if money is not an object, the point is to restore and maintain natural health without becoming dependent on drugs for the rest of your life. So, you can do your own research. And I love have you ever noticed, raise your hand, not if you're driving, but have you ever been to your doctor and said, I did this research online? I read about this in the medical research. Every week I read, 20, 30 different studies that come in via email. I used to have to pay monthly for journals to do that. It's wonderful that so much information is available now to doctors and to patients. You can find information. And while we're on that subject, please don't read WebMD as a source of useful information, because that is basically just pharmaceutical marketing. There are numerous other sources of good online information, like the Mayo Clinic website, the Cleveland Clinic website, PubMed, and BinkleyHealingCenter.com. But if you've ever been to a routine visit to your doctor and found that practitioner was frustrated with the fact that you looked up some things online and they didn't want to be bothered with your questions, well, that's a sign that you need a different doctor, because so much information is widely available. Most doctors now expect their patients, smart doctors expect their patients to arm themselves with information. If they do that well, then it actually saves time. If you know what to expect when you show up to your doctor's office, you've done your research in advance and you're polite and present your questions calmly, then that makes for a better visit, no matter what the situation is. And of course, I'm talking about most people who have to rely on the insurance that they've paid for to go to a standard medical doctor to treat their their condition's already bad enough to need medical care. It's obviously much better to avoid ending up in that situation in the first place. But if you're there and you're asking questions that aren't being answered, send your questions to me. Email your questions to me. People don't realize this. If something is, not right, if you're wondering about something, many other people are having the same experience. They want answers to the same questions. Send those questions to me, and I'll answer them on this show. To be clear, if you do show up at my office and you need medical care, I'm going to refer you out to a proper medical specialist. So just any doctor that does routine blood work will identify at least a few times a year someone who has leukemia. I've had this experience many times. It's never fun for the person receiving that news, but leukemia usually shows up on routine blood work in people who are asymptomatic. I've had patients show up with symptoms that they had no idea that were related to cancer, and found out they had cancer and had to refer them to an oncologist. I've had patients that came in who I x-rayed and had signs of an aortic aneurysm and needed to go to the hospital immediately to get that treated. The point is, if you have someone you love and they've been to other doctors, or they're refusing to go to a doctor, this is really the big one. If someone you love is refusing to go to a doctor because they're afraid of something that, they don't want, this has happened several times where someone will bring in a spouse, for example, usually a woman bringing in their husband, or something bringing in their brother. It's usually a man that doesn't want to go to get any kind of treatment. And if they'll show up just with their person, and I do the blood work and, do a consultation, I can usually calm them down. My office is a little bit more inviting, warm environment than a hospital or a sterile doctor's office. And I've had a lot of patients who have been in that situation where I've been able to calm them down and get them agree to a few tests where we can identify what's happening, and often identify a solution that doesn't involve going to the hospital or getting drug therapy, but also other times where they really do need to go to the hospital immediately, or I need to refer them to an oncologist or a hepatologist, a liver specialist, whatever it is. That will be the outcome. If you bring anybody in, the outcome will be they'll get a program of treatment that will help them, or a referral to a specialist if they need that, or sometimes both. For example, here's a 50-year-old man that came in to me a few months ago. He just came back for a follow-up. When he came in, he was complaining mainly just of brain fog. In fact, when he brought I give everyone a 7-page form with dozens of things to fill out because everything affects everything else. Most people, especially men, when they come in, have one complaint. I just want you to focus on this thing. If you can fix this thing, I'll be happy. Well, that works if you want drugs, but if you want to use healthy measures to restore normal balance in your body, then everything matters. Everything affects everything else. But literally all he put on his form was brain fog. Well, brain fog can be debilitating if it impairs your ability to drive or show up to work. If you're just so, especially it's frustrating. It's maddening. Brain fog can cause anxiety and depression because, just things aren't working the way they used to be. And there is apparently no reason for that. Well, there are reasons for it. And not always, but usually they can be identified on testing. So this 50-year-old man's main complaint was brain fog. But then when I, went through his form with him, he also revealed that he had bloating, gas, soft stools. Nobody likes to talk about diarrhea, but that was really one of his major complaints. Hemorrhoids, also not a fun topic. Some sinus symptoms and gastric reflux. Heartburn, things, acid floating back up into your esophagus where it should not be. Your stomach should always have strong acid. You shouldn't have any acid leaking up into your esophagus. So he was sort of blown away when I told him that, okay, you have symptoms of acid reflux. What I'm going to recommend you do is take betaine hydrochloric acid. What? I have acid reflux and you want me to take more acid? Yes. Why is that? Because the only reason anyone has gastric esophageal reflux or heartburn, anything that's the result of acid in your esophagus, the tube between your throat and your stomach, is because the sphincter, the muscle, the valve that closes off the tube that goes from your throat to your stomach, the lower esophageal sphincter, that valve is always closed. And when you eat food that is going to cause your stomach to produce more acid, especially meat, but any kind of heavy protein, fat. Anytime you eat any food, your stomach is going to start to produce hydrochloric acid to digest that food. But if you have a heavy protein or fat meal, your stomach will produce more hydrochloric acid. And if it doesn't produce enough, then it's going to be very difficult for you to digest that meal. And in any case, whatever food hits your stomach, the receptors in your stomach are going to send a message to your brain to tell your stomach to produce more hydrochloric acid when needed. The problem is if you don't also simultaneously get a message to strongly contract that sphincter at the top of your stomach, at the bottom of your esophagus, where that transition between when you swallow food, it travels down your throat into the stomach. There's a sphincter there. It's very similar to the valve at the end of the digestive tract where all of the waste products of your meals are eliminated. That valve is always closed, but it's loosely closed. If suddenly you have a need to strongly contract that muscle to keep something from coming out, you have the conscious ability to do that. So similarly, the lower esophageal sphincter, the valve at the top of the stomach, at the bottom of the tube from the throat to your stomach, that valve is always closed. When a bolus of food that you've chewed and swallowed hits that valve, the valve opens, the food goes through, and then it closes again. But when you eat a big meal with a lot of protein and fat, your stomach immediately senses that, sends signals to your brain, which come back down and cause the production of strong acid. Everyone hears about, I want my body to be alkaline. That's true. Most of your body should be alkaline. But your stomach should be a boiling cauldron of strong acid. You need that acid to break down and digest any protein that you're eating, magnesium, calcium, iron, B12, a whole host of other nutrients. If you take antacids, you're going to be deficient in all of those things. And that strong stomach acid is your first line of defense against any infections and any infectious agents, any bacteria that might get in and cause an infection in your gut or your colon. And this man's blood test clearly showed that he had a deficiency of hydrochloric acid. The way that shows up on your blood test is a deficiency of serum protein levels and multiple other minerals. He took some betaine hydrochloric acid to improve his absorption of protein and several other nutrients, and he came back a few months later and said he had less fatigue, no hemorrhoids, no bloating, no soft stools anymore right after a meal like he used to have, no sinus symptoms, and he was really excited about this. No reflux. He said it was definitely relieved by the betaine hydrochloric acid that he was taking. Even when eating hot salsa, he used to get really severe reflux symptoms when he'd eat hot peppers, and when he took extra hydrochloric acid for his stomach so that it would lock down that valve between the boiling cauldron of his stomach to digest those things and his esophagus, it worked. I'm Dr. Todd Binkley. You're listening to Safe, Effective, Natural Solutions to Almost Any Health Challenge. And a lot of people are surprised when something simple like just taking an extra supplement to improve the ability of your stomach to absorb nutrients and prevent a lousy, loose sphincter from allowing acid from your stomach to squirt up into your esophagus. When people have acid reflux, it feels like a geyser, and it's really just a few drops leaking up where they shouldn't be. So the main question is, how do you tell the difference between good and bad, between supplements that are helpful or useless? I love it when patients do their own research. Can your doctor say the same? A lot of doctors are really irritated when they're confronted with questions by smart patients who are doing their own research and saying, what about if I take CoQ10, or if I take more vitamin D, or if I take, this supplement for this condition? The main reason most doctors don't want to hear about and entertain questions about various nutrients is because they're simply not educated about it. It would be nice if all doctors knew about functional medicine, about nutritional medicine. They don't. They're busy treating disease that people have just waited too long, that now requires medical care. So, give them a little bit of a break, because they really, their time is filled with treating people just waited too long. But if you want to live long and live well and give your body a good chance of preventing you from ending up in a situation like that, then there are options. You can get tested earlier. You can identify weaknesses in your immune system, support that your kidneys, your heart, your liver, your immune system need to function well all the time. You want your body to function at 100%, no matter how old you are. 100% for you, whatever that is. You want to maximize the ability for your immune system to defend you against anything that you're confronted with. That's why some people in the same room their kid comes home from preschool with a cold or a flu, and one of you gets sick and the other one doesn't. What's the difference? Well, genes have a factor, but a lot of it has to do with how well you're taking care of yourself. These things can be identified on proper testing, and then you can be armed with data that you can use to prioritize commitments of precious time and money to get the results that you want for yourself and those you love. Thank you so much for listening. Tune in next Friday. Have a fantastic weekend.
You've been listening to Safe, Effective, Natural Solutions with Dr. Todd Binkley. If you have a health question you want discussed on the show, email your health questions to Dr. Binkley at BinkleyHealingCenter.com. Take advantage of this opportunity to ask questions for yourself and for your loved ones, because our health matters. Join him next Friday at 2 p.m. for safe, effective natural solutions here on 98.3 FM, The Word.